Welcome back to Nationwide. Pensioner Michael Coyne was born in Galway and now lives in Meath, having spent many years in America. During his time in the States, Michael was drafted into the US Army and fought in the Vietnam War. What's highly unusual is that Michael, a keen photographer, took his cine camera with him and was able to film the war as he saw it. Our reporter Richard Dowling has met this unusual man to find out about his life and times.
I must have been lucky. Well, I don't believe in luck as such. Maybe the not Vietnamese would see me as they were unlucky.
Michael Coyne has had an extraordinary life. Having emigrated to America, he was drafted and then volunteered to go and fight in Vietnam. Along with his guns and ammunition, he also brought his cine camera with him wherever he went.
The unit that I was in, they got orders to go to Germany, but I'd met guys that had come back from Vietnam and they said it was grand, like no problem there. And so I volunteered to go to Vietnam. And I was the only one out of the unit to go there. When I got there, the heat was stifling, terrible heat altogether. I went on a helicopter and I went up to Blackhurst, which was in a place called Swan Lock, which was northeast of Saigon. I'd never seen a tank in my life before that. So I was in the Scouts for a while. There was a personnel carrier. You know, I was in battle with them. I had another qualification that I didn't realize I had or didn't think it meant anything, but when you got drafted, they have these applications for what your languages, bilingual or whatever, like an up and down, Gaelic or Irish and English. So I couldn't really speak a whole lot of Irish, to be honest with you, but put that down. But I was told later that I was put in the Scouts because I was bilingual. I was in that for a while, and then somebody got killed, I think it was, on the tank. And I was put on as a back deck gunner. Now, the tanks are not designed for back deck gunners. An M60 machine gun. The foreman crew, they put the fourth man up on the back deck of the tank, and he'd have to get down, scout trails, and do all the extra kind of stuff. But when the shooting starts, you'd be the only man outside the tank. But I loved it there. I liked that better than inside because the heat in the tank and the sun, that would kill you too. But I ended up doing every job on a tank, including a tank commander. Well, I was on a tank then for approximately a year and 2 months, or 16 months. I was 2 months of that 16 months in the hospitals, so I'm counting them because that's their figures, but I know I was in the hospital, and they know too, it's records from the 1st of July. I was in a coma until the 5th of July. And when I caught malaria first, we were out in the jungle, and this helicopter, I remember that I met a guy last year. I went over for a reunion in Chicago who was standing there when the helicopter went off. I remember his face too. He was from Kentucky, but he was telling me that, he says, when I seen them chopping you out in the helicopter, come down to the trees and back up, and hitting trees and everything, and it did. He had a Kentucky accent. I said, I'm never going to miss a day that I wasn't going to take my malarial pills.
Throughout his tour of duty, Michael saw action on practically every single day.
Either I was stupid or just so dumb to it all that it didn't really, it didn't faze me any more than being in a riot in Dublin, like, do you know what I mean? Or that kind of thing. I didn't have the consciousness or anything to worry about it much. Neither did most of the young, maybe that's why they have all these young fellows on the front line, like really, because I didn't get afraid or nothing. Afterwards you'd be laughing and just, you know. But near the end I started to get afraid, all right, like. I got heroism in ground combat with a V device on May the 30th, 1968. We were in a place called Ducroix, and it was a swamp, practically. It was a rice paddy that was completely soaked and all that. The personnel carriers, they had all been shot up, and there was all kinds of wounded guys on it. And the captain, he was in a desperate state anyway, he must have got a call to try and get these guys out. And he says, I need a couple of volunteers really badly, he said. He looked at me and I said, right, I volunteered, because, and another guy, his name was Hennigan. We started running across the rice paddy. And I remember Hennigan was right here on my shoulder, because I could hear him running next to me, you know what I mean? We weren't talking around us, it was hell for leather. And as we were going, the bullets were hitting all around us, machine gun fire. Anyway, Hennigan got shot in the leg, and I stopped. And I looked at him and all that, and his leg was shot to the thigh. I kept on going, because the man says, I have to go here, they're zeroing in on us. And I kept going, and then just as I was about from here to the front door, I got shot in the arm. But it was only a deep scratch. It went in and out. And I remember then going to the personnel carriers, and there would be guys, and some of them, like, they were just pieces of bodies. Some of them still alive. And I remember carrying 4 or 5 of them onto this track. And I remember getting up on it, but it's the other guy that drove it. And I had a machine gun in 60. And they turned on us, and there was RPGs hitting, fire everywhere. But we got back. We got the yoke going and got out of there, back to the thing.
While there was often contact with the Viet Cong and regular North Vietnamese army, as a scout, Michael also had regular contact with ordinary South Vietnamese villagers.
The women would always come up to you in the villages, the old women. And they used to always go, like, open my shirt like that, right? Number one, shouting it out, right? Number 1. And I knew what that meant. I was the first guy to get shot if anybody stepped out of line. So I used to go back up to the tank. They're all friendlies.
But over time, Michael began to see himself as an oppressor, more akin to a black and tan soldier than a member of a US Armoured Cavalry Regiment.
We were out on a kind of a dirt track. A funeral just went by. They were carrying this coffin, red coffin, all the people were going by, right? And about an hour later, this old guy come out of the jungle. Like, it wasn't the jungle, it was like the rubber plantation. And he didn't expect us to be there, so he couldn't run and go back. He was out before he'd recognized it. Then we seen him, right? And I was told by the, come over to radio, go down and check him out. Usually that and go down and shoot him, you know what I mean? Anyway, I was detailed with it, and I had a 45, I took it out and went out, and right up to him like that. And poor old devil, he was shaking like that. And I just turned my back and put the gun back in, and I just walked back out, and I says, he's a poor old devil, there's nothing wrong, just let him go, I said. And I told him to follow me out, and he went back out on the road, and he walked on down the road. But I felt sick, like, what am I going to do, poor old devil? You know, he's an old man, like, you know, no threat to nobody. And he was just shivering of him. He thought he was going to get bumped off, like, you know. But I'm nearly sure if any of the rest of them went out, that's what had happened.
Michael was eventually medevaced out of Vietnam in 1968, having contracted malaria for a second time. After the war, he eventually ended up back in his native Meath. It's a long way from Vietnam, but that doesn't mean he's forgotten what happened there.
Oh, they were getting killed. Lots of them getting killed, like, and replaced. And those new guys coming in and getting killed, and I never even got to know their name, do you know what I mean? Towards the end, like, they'd all come to me for advice, lieutenants and everything. I was the longest survivor, one of the longest survivors. Well, I was the longest in my platoon. All the rest had gone, like, you know.
And there you have the reality and futility of the Vietnam War as seen through the eyes of Michael Coyne. And that ends our programme for this evening. We'll be back with Nationwide again on Monday at 7. In the meantime, enjoy the weekend. On next Monday's Nationwide, a programme focusing on aspects of education, the foreign students who come to learn English and live the Irish life for a period of time, and the library outside, which encourages all of us to read a book every now and then.
Tomorrow night here on 1 at 9:45, Laura Whitmore and Simon Delaney present the biggest night for film and television on the Irish Film and Television Awards.
We'll be together